I'm not a weakness by the way. No, you're hearing wrong, you're hearing wrong. I'm not on weakness 500, bro. I'm on resistance 5. I'm on resistance 5, bro. Chill out, bro. I'm on resistance 600.
Hello. Jason is just one of the bad fruits of this game, to be honest. Primarily because of how easy he is and how bad of a starting killer he is. When I first started out, I was deathly afraid of Savini Jasons. Not only did it look sick as hell, but I thought for the longest time that Savini Jasons was just an alternative Milestone 4 skin, with me thinking the actual one was the Milestone 3 skin. Either way, anytime I saw either of those Milestone skins in my match, I just considered it raps. Me dying instantly in about 10 seconds, I vowed to myself that I wanted to main Jason. The moves that Jason did felt impossible, and yet here was a Savini Jason doing the impossible right here in front of me. Jason damn near had 2 stamina bars and flew like a bullet and punched like one too. When I picked up Jason for the first time, I was getting some kills but never any legitimate wins. Even though my journey was tough, I refused to stray past my objective. Savini Jason will be in my hands. Then I met my beautiful husband. 8 days later, and I don't actually understand the fear surrounding Savini Jasons, primarily because they pretty much play the exact same playstyle as you would expect them to play, except a little better. Jason isn't hard to pick up, but is by far an entirely different playstyle to all the other killers. So vastly different that the only way Jason can do meaningful damage to a team is by pure aura. No, I'm not joking. Jason heavily relies on the team being isolated, and in groups can damn near shut down Jason as a killer entirely. For a starter killer, the skill floor is very low and the skill ceiling is kind of medium.
I got this!
Kind of expected for a starter killer, but at the same time, he's in a really weird position in his balancing. He seems to be strong in damn near every lobby I join in, but those lobbies I join aren't the brightest. I think in a competitive scenario, Jason would probably be the worst pick in the game. Why? Well, I'd also like to educate myself. So I'll queue up a couple of matches to see what I can do with the easiest killer to play, but also the most feared in the Spectre, Jason motherfucking Voorhees. To be dead honest, there's absolutely nothing I can talk about when talking about my learning process with this guy. Jason isn't as tech-like as 1X or my beautiful sexy man. Most of his gameplay is quite literally holding W and clicking M1 occasionally. He has other abilities, but there's damn near nothing interesting to talk about them. Behead is a move that applies helpless and does 20 damage. Gashing wound is primarily just an ability used to punish mistakes. And Raging Pace is just the second stamina bar. I'll try to go through every one of his abilities and explain them with detail cause, I'm gonna be honest, there's nothing really to talk about. His slash is actually pretty oppressive. Stat-wise, his bleeding can deal various amounts of damage. Bleeding 1 can deal a standard 8 damage on top of his 20 base damage. The bleeding hurts, by the way. A single M1 from Jason can bring every support character down 30%, and it's enough to disengage someone from intervening in a chase. Not like you can body block against him anyway. His slash in specific is piercing, meaning that it can hit multiple survivors in one go. His draw time is also significantly faster, being 0.2 seconds faster, to be exact, from the standard 0.4. Coolkid's the fastest, standing at 0.1, but suffers via range. It doesn't matter anyway, you can still deal 40 damage at Gun's Force. What I thought was that Jason's bleeding was the most oppressive thing in the game, especially when it came to stacking it. You can stack effects in the game, by the way, and bleeding falls under that. While the standard 28 damage you get from one swing is already a ton of damage, the next swing adds another charge to the bleeding, making it deal like 4 extra damage, I guess. The important thing to note is that the timer resets after getting hit, but is capped out at 2. Still, dealing 64 damage is strong, right? Well, that's when we run into issues. Firstly, almost everybody does 28 damage, with the exception being Coolkid. In this scenario, Jason wins since not only can he cast much faster than everybody else, but once again, they can hit multiple people at once. But what about the second hit? For Jason, he does 54 damage, which could be extended out to 58 if you wait out the bleed timer to min-max it. It's pretty strong damage for 2 hits and can cause sentinels and supports to disengage instantly since that's practically 50% of their health. But the problem is that every killer has this pressure. 1x deals the most amount of damage with a whopping 61 damage. This is because of that extra 6 damage 1x gets on top of the 8 damage over time. John Doe follows up with 56 damage and Coolkid rings up last with only 53 damage. Which in this case, Jason would deal the least amount of damage. The bleed doesn't actually stack, nor does it reset the timer after 2, which is pretty fair actually. Jason is the best at the game when it comes to basic running chases, so obviously he would need to deal the least amount of damage, unlike 1x's extra poison damage or John Doe's instant damage, which deals the full amount. Another thing to keep in mind is that John Doe can still deal a ton of damage in the form of his trail. By simply dipping your toe in his trail, you'll get rewarded with 8 damage. What does this all mean? Jason has a somewhat weak slash actually. I say somewhat since not only can he cast it much quicker, but he can hit through people. Goddamn! Slash or Behead can be abused by guests so much, and this isn't even a case of me having a skill issue. Maybe it is. But one thing I see constantly with Jason in specific is tunnel vision.
Bro, I saw you last second.
Some insane tunnel vision, I know.
When dealing with a character that is all melee based and has no way of pressuring the whole team, you will have to hone in on one survivor at a time. I've had such bad tunnel vision that I simply neglect survivors and practically give them a free stun. My brain notices this, and if I were playing any other killer, I would have just used the ranged ability to pressure them out or simply swap targets. But in this scenario, I just simply could not let the Elliot go since not only can he heal from a medkit if I dropped Chase, but he can also just heal other people. If I dropped Chase now, everything I did would have been for nothing. I had to kill this Elliot because he was my ticket to extra time. This means I had to quite literally brush past survivors to just get to Elliot. You could M1 on the way to dish damage as you go, but in pro lobbies, they wouldn't even be in your way. The best way to shut down Jason's pressure is to just quite literally stand aside. He could jump from survivor to survivor, but it rarely works out since you lose sight of who you were originally chasing after. Now you have a couple of wounded survivors, but nobody dead. The tunnel vision isn't his biggest weakness, however. Despite everything, survivors can also have extreme tunnel vision and jump in at the most wrong time possible.
I got this!
The fuck?
Why?
When everybody is injured, it works with someone like 1x, since nobody will want to help or intervene in your chase. This is because 1x can just drop a chase, kill a survivor, and then continue on his merry way. 1x's damage potential is so high that it's actually really good if the team doesn't want to butt it. Hence, him killing all the survivors one by one by one by. For Jason, it doesn't matter for like 5 survivors. Dusekkar can shield and slow Jason from afar, forcing Jason to drop the chase and start a brand new one. Taph can set up around the map, turning popular loops into spots that Jason would be slowed down in. Builderman forces Jason to stop doing anything he's doing and force him to destroy his sentry, practically stunning him for 2 to 3 seconds. Elliot can snipe his pizza onto the survivors and chance as a flintlock, allowing him to stun even without getting into Jason's range. There's a lot you can do from afar to make it impossible for Jason to dish out any kind of pressure. Hilariously, you can do the opposite, in which you can apply pressure onto Jason. You can do this with every other killer, but it's sort of a double-edged sword. On one hand, you can drink your soda, but also run the risk of getting heavily punished for it. For Jason and John Doe, the soda adds so much pressure onto them that it practically acts as like jingling keys, forcing the killer to sprint forward and never regenerate stamina. However, despite this, Jason possesses the one thing the other killers don't. If Jason wants a survivor dead, they're dead. This is primarily due to raging pace, allowing Jason to practically have 200 stamina while keeping pressure on one survivor he's chasing. On rare occasions, it would be useful to raging pace into Behead since it does lethal damage and not overtime damage, allowing you to finish off a survivor that has minimal injury instantly. On the topic of Behead, it's practically a nothing burger. It can be very strong, I guess, but then again, you would need to hit a person for it to be put into effect. Trying to hit support players or sentinels to disable their aid isn't as strong as it cut out to be. Just use this to finish someone off or spam it until the survivor dies. I wanted to clarify some things. So like Behead isn't a horrible move, as like I said in the video, and you might be tempted to say that it's a throwaway move, and yeah, you're kind of right. My statement on Behead holds some weight, and to me it still rings a little bit true, primarily because helpless on one survivor is kind of weak, considering the whole lobby is still unhelpless. They can still help out, and it's like, sure, popping it on an Elliot to disable healing for 14 seconds is pretty strong, but like, what if they were on cooldown? Then it just sort of like ends up being a 20 damage move. And in that scenario, a single slash would have been better than Behead. But the only situation where I think Behead would be very, very good is when a survivor is cornered or running out of stamina, or if they have 2 bleed stacks, my bad. Cause like, I would probably use it after the 2 bleed stacks so that I wouldn't be doing just like 20 damage per swing. I could do 20 damage per swing plus a helpless. And it's like, the way that I see it, it's a very rapid fire move. 20 seconds is not a very long cooldown, and it very much complements the fact that Jason is a very strong chasing killer. But like, I think that's everything I have to say for Behead. It's a very strong situational move, but putting it into comparison from other killers' moves, it gets blown out of the water. For example, 1x's entanglement. Not only can it stop a survivor in place, but it applies helpless and it's ranged. As far as I'm aware, the Behead move can be the like make or break of winning games. I've certainly had a couple of crutches in that span. Like for example, applying a helpless on a guest, like I've shown in the video before. I think it shows up in the video. Hold on. The clip that I'm talking about is this one, where I managed to land not only a normal Behead, but an enraged Behead, which dragged its cooldown down to 12 seconds, which is super strong. Not only did it 35 damage, but it also gave them helpless. And as you can see, they went back to me expecting a punch, but they couldn't because they were helpless. It's like small situations like that are very strong, but it ends up being like predictability. If a survivor is like attentive enough, it ends up being like, oh no, they behead me. Okay, let's just keep running then. I'm not going to use my ability. Yeah, you can stop like one Sentinel from stunning you or an Elliot from healing you, but that's not going to stop a Builderman. It's not going to stop Chance. It's not going to stop Dusekkar. And those are issues that I bring up later in the video. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Behead is not a throwaway move. It's just very situationally strong. Okay, that's all I got. Goodbye. Okay, wait, what's next? Gashing Wound. Okay, this one has a lot of benefits actually. This is that move that has a relatively telegraphed attack that when missed puts a distance between you and the survivor.
Why?
And when landed gives you a huge edge in the match. This move can be landed in chase, but surprisingly only against pros. I doubt I'll ever get a clip of it, but the key thing to do to counter Jason is to intentionally get hit so that not only can he save stamina but also put distance. You can punish this by making the survivor think you'll slash and give them distance, only to Gashing Wound and take 50 health away. And that's all I got. Gashing Wound does like 70 damage when in range, but realistically you can only do that against Shaletsky's, guests, and anybody with less than a minute in the game. Okay, okay, hold on. Raging Pace. This move is what determines a good Jason player from a bad one. Most people I see use it in two ways. The ones that simply use it to regain their stamina right away. Why? And the ones that quite literally see it till the end. I land in between those two, in which I pressure survivors into wasting stamina so I can lunge forward, hit nothing, and practically win the stamina game. This is readily apparent in corners or small loops, and one good lunge forward can be the make or break of it.
I can't stop winning.
Once again, Chance can punish for absolutely free and practically make you waste seconds by stunning you after you finish Raging Pace. This is done so that the survivor can make distance and regenerate stamina, effectively restarting the chase all over again. Chance is unironically the best Sentinel in the game. Kind of funny how his only counterbalance is just being lucky.
Don't worry, twin, I got you. Tap into that new sleep funk. How is funk gonna make me go to sleep?
But disregarding Chance as a survivor, Jason heavily relies on Raging Pace to not only try and catch survivors off guard, but to also keep pressure on a survivor. I say a survivor since they can't actually put pressure on a team as a whole. You remember those survivors I mentioned earlier? They all can indirectly affect the chase, and when put into rotation can make it near impossible to kill anybody. For example, Builderman. Turrets aren't something you can make easier to kill like with any other killer. You have to go out of your way to destroy it and semi-restart a chase. The turret is obviously an incredibly strong slowdown that needs to be destroyed, but what most Jason players don't realize is that the dispenser is the enemy here. Builderman single-handedly encourages tunneling since damaging other survivors is pointless when they could just kill it off. Sure, it puts them out of commission for the time, but it doesn't kill them. This is why a ton of Jason players target one person at a time, since trying to distribute damage across the team is damn near useless when your only way of damage is up close. With every other killer, they can nearly negate Builderman's dispenser pressure. Coolkid has pizza minions that chase survivors down and keeps them occupied. Johnathan has corrupt energy, which can be used to deal mass damage and sometimes guarantee a kill, entirely revoking the opportunity to even heal from a dispenser. And 1x has mass infection, which can be used to catch survivors off guard, especially when they're grouped up. Jason has nearly nothing other than the ability to make sure a single survivor will die, but it isn't as powerful as Johnathan's. While both killers can make sure one survivor dies, John Doe can make sure it happens quickly while also punishing any other survivor willing to help via trail or corrupt energy. On top of that, Johnathan has traps which, when stepped on, deals 19 damage to a survivor over 10 seconds. Not only is that one less damage than Jason's base, but it gives John Doe speed 1 for 10 seconds, effectively putting them at 30 sprint speed. Not only is this a guaranteed death for the survivor he's chasing, but if John Doe is actually chasing the person that stepped on that, it's a literal guaranteed kill, no matter what. Juke all you want, you gotta do it for 10 seconds straight. Almost forgot what we were talking about. Alright, Jason. So, Builderman negates most, if not all, pressure that Jason can do for a team. Why not target him first? Not like the other characters can. Wait. Dusekkar is one of Jason's worst enemies, primarily because he can't do anything to stop him.
That's a guaranteed hit. Oh, hell yeah. I have enough time to place this down.
He can either try and bait Dusekkar into dropping his shield so that he can continue chasing, or just drop the chase entirely and just go after him. It gets worse, especially when he's super far away. Unlike other means of pressure that other killers can do, like corrupt nature, mass infection, and corrupt energy, Jason has nothing. All he can do is just use up all of his aura and pressure Dusekkar into dropping his shield. Not only that, his slowness may be very short, but it hurts. Slowness 2 is enough to make Jason sprint at a whopping 22.4. For reference, the average survivor sprint speed is at 26, so although it's 3 seconds, this makes a huge gap. If you're against a competent Dusekkar, you need to target him first, but of course the team won't make it easy.
What lobby am I in? And he got slowness for 5 seconds. 15, 10, I don't know. I don't play guess. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. This is very one-sided.
Wait, they did. Okay, you see, the thing with Jason is that while he can be this weak on paper, in execution he's actually pretty versatile. Mostly because Jason encourages actual team coordination and rotation, meaning that the more survivalists there are, the better for Jason. This just means that for a lobby that doesn't care, Jason will just absolutely stomp on every single one of them. Hell, I've been constantly stomping on lobbies as Jason, and while he can be very vulnerable to the previous mentioned survivors, if the lobby doesn't help each other out, then just Jason wins automatically. At most, the way lone survivors could win is by wasting nearly a full minute and a half of Jason's time, making it smaller and smaller, but doing that against Jason is already hard. I've been playing the game for a while now, and even then, getting in the chase with Jason means you've been forced to sign a contract which says that you'll accept you'll die in this match. I know how to counter Johnathan and 1x, but the movement speed for the other two killers is what makes them just as powerful as the other two skilled killers. For Jason, you hold down a button and M1 occasionally, and for Coolkid, I want to make a separate video complaining about him later. But Jason is at a really weird position where he absolutely sucks on paper and yet dominates on the field. I think with the addition of pro servers, this could change, but the way I view Jason is to be like second weakest, the weakest being my husband. Listen, if I don't want anybody playing my GOAT, I gotta bad mouth and create this horrible reputation for my husband. Is Jason the best killer? No. His inability to create pressure coupled with his inability to hit survivors from a distance or through walls is what makes him a bad fruit. I've always thought this killer was balanced simply because it didn't have any bullshit moves that can go through walls or hit from afar. I no longer think that way. and I think Jason is like the third most balanced character. I actually don't know what I would want to change for this guy, because while I can sit here and tell you that he sucks in a theoretical scenario, he disproves that in every lobby I join in. Anytime I see Jason, it feels like a 40-16 whether or not Jason can wipe the server or not even get a single hit in. Not like he's interesting to play anyways, his gameplay is quite literally holding W and clicking from time to time. Theoretically, he's kind of balanced. Jason thrives off mistakes from the survivors, and the survivors need to work together if they want to have a survivor win the game. An example of working together is block baiting. A guest can run in, miss his block, and then get shielded by a Dusekkar before going through that whole combo, turning his damage from 50 to like 22. On top of that, Dusekkar can restart a chase since the survivor with resistance would be able to take a slash in order to get distance. Yeah, the bleed goes through resistance, but like taking 12 damage is better than 54. If Jason does decide to go through the Dusekkar, then the survivors who was initially being chased can just go heal with the Builderman while Elliot stays on Jason. Jason doesn't have a direct counter since being put into a chase against him will result in your death, but slowdown and other factors can entirely negate that. While he has a ton of issues, so do the other killers. Coolkid suffers from tunnel vision as well. Johnathan can only use one move in chase that can be dodged, blocked, or cancelled entirely. Not blocked, my bad. 1x doesn't actually have any weaknesses other than his aim. And while, yeah, if the entire team works together to fight the killer as a team, makes it incredibly difficult for the killer to win, especially for Jason. But the thing about that is that I can say that for any killer. A well-coordinated team can take down any killer, and that's not an issue of killer balance. It's more so of survivor balance. Survivors like Builderman are so incredibly strong since they apply slowness too without even engaging with the killer and give survivors a way to passively heal themselves in mass. Jason is an alright killer. Not strong in theory, but damn near overpowered in practice. I actually don't know how to close this video because I practically learned everything there is to do, except for like, I actually don't know. I mean, I guess I learned the counters to Jason, like those survivors I mentioned, but I don't know what to say. I don't like dying to him, nor do I like playing with him. I actually got a headache from all of those matches with Jason, and with how much I wrote this script, I had to gather so much footage for this nonchalant killer. I'm gonna take a nap. Jason is surprisingly worse than 1x. Don't recommend him to play. If you're starting out, go on Coolkid or something. That 40 damage is gonna carry you for the rest of your life. Hello, I wanted to thank you for watching the whole video. This time I heavily recommend feedback because, to be frank, I still don't understand Jason fully. I know his gameplay loop, his abilities, and I just feel like I'm fully missing something. Anyways, the next video will be on Noli since it's getting really close to that deadline. I have some footage from the PTB that'll show his growth, and I'll find some other clips of him too to talk about his history, so it won't be fully boring. If you have anything to say, negative or positive, please comment it down since I don't dictate how killers should be designed. You have yourself a good morning, afternoon, evening, and night. How's something in the chat?